So today it's not going to be a cheerful intro. As you might have heard, Putin attacked Ukraine yesterday, which turned out to be a full-scale military invasion. I wanted to take a moment to express my support towards the people of Ukraine who are suffering due to Putin's obsession for power. There is no excuse for what he has done, and I sincerely hope that the rest of Europe will help Ukraine to protect their country. I wasn't even sure if I should release this interview, as it has been recorded last week prior to the attack on Ukraine. I spoke with Andrejus Trofimovas, who is the CEO of the Aventus Group, which is listing loans on PeerBerry. In the first part of the interview, I asked him about what would happen to investors' investment in the worst-case scenario where Russia invades Ukraine. His answers will give you a good idea about the safety of your investments and perhaps also the implication of this military act on the entire lending industry in Eastern Europe. Before you watch this interview, I want to mention that as of yesterday, PeerBerry as well as other marketplaces in Europe have suspended any loan listings from Russia and Ukraine. All right, Andrejus, thanks for joining me for another interview. It's slowly becoming a tradition here on P2P Empire to talk to you on an annual basis. I'm excited to speak to you and talk about the latest developments of the Aventus Group.
Yeah, hello, Jakob. Very good to speak with you today.
All right, let's kick off the interview with the biggest question in the room, I think, and that's the topic of the political situation in Russia and Ukraine. All of the investors are wondering whether their investments are safe in those markets. I'm aware that you travel a lot, Ukraine and Russia as well. As a matter of fact, as we speak, you are just in St. Petersburg right now. So what is your personal opinion on the current political situation between Russia and Ukraine?
Thank you for this good question. Actually, I'm living now in the Ukraine, in Kiev, for the last 2 years. But today I'm in St. Petersburg in Russia, so I know the situation from inside, I would say. In the beginning, inside of our company, we were sure somehow that there will be no war. And my personal attitude, actually, and action as well prove it, because even next week I'm buying one property in Kiev. Yeah, so I didn't decide to withdraw from it because I believe Ukraine economic for sure, absolutely. And we keep going in these two markets, which are big for us. But the way we are very profitable here, of course, we were investigating the situation, what if? This is very logical because we are responsible for other people's money. What can I say? First of all, we are very profitable in these both markets for long term already. We are one of the most profitable companies in these two markets. So we were thinking in a worst case scenario, what can happen? Actually, for us, it would be a big pain because of exchange rate would be changed during such a situation. But of course, we would be continuing working because we are profitable here, and situation in the market wouldn't be changed so much, I would say. The only influence for us would be exchange rate. So if at this period investors would decide to withdraw money from PeerBerry, we would just decrease most likely sales for new customers, especially like we did during COVID, and paid off the debts. Because the company now has extremely a lot of reserves, because last year was extremely profitable for us, I can say that net profit after taxes was more than 37 million euros between all the companies of Aventus. All the money we invested in our business. So everything is inside. For us, it would be even much easier to pay off PeerBerry debt than in comparison with situation in 2020 during COVID crisis. This could be like the second crisis, which could be quite serious for us. And remember, 2 years ago, we paid off everything within minutes in comparison with other loan originators. So now we are prepared much better even than 2 years before. We learned our lessons and we were very confident about this situation. The main lesson from this time was that most likely mistake we did, we stopped issuing loans, by the way, in Russia, Ukraine, and later on it was very hard, to catch these volumes again. So when we analyzed the situation this year, we understood that we will be not stopping issuing loans until the critical station.
As you pointed out, I think for a lot of people, a lot of investors, it's like a roller coaster when they read the news, one day the risk is kind of increasing, the other day there is some kind of news announcements like what Russia is withdrawing troops from the border. So there is obviously a lot of emotions connected to that, and a lot of people are worried what if there is going to be a military conflict between Russia and Ukraine, how that would impact their loan portfolio in the Aventus Group, right? So in the case of like a, let's say, worst case scenario, the military conflict, and after that, there is going to be probably some sanctions on Russia, and there has been speculations like what Russia will be disconnected from the SWIFT network. How is this going to impact the transaction flow between the lending companies in Russia and, let's say, the investors on PeerBerry?
Once again, I will say that the equity of Aventus at this moment is around 60 million euros, and everything is invested in short-term loans. So in case of crisis or unexpected situation, we can just stop issuing and we'll collect money within 1-2 months, to pay off all the debt, by the way. And still we'll get like more than 60 million in the account left. Plus, we have quite impressive reserves on bank accounts, so we are ready for such a situation. The only situation I can't solve and say how to drive, I would say this SWIFT case, as you told me, because this something, I don't know how to say, nobody work in such a situation when there is no SWIFT. So for such situation, I would say we have money, by the way, to pay off all Russian debts from other companies. So we are able to pay everything from other countries for Russian debt, So we can cover the debts. But of course, for us, it would be like not nice and pleasant situation because we couldn't finance from PeerBerry the Russian operations for future. On the other hand, for instance, now in Russia, we have a situation when we have offers from 3 banks to finance all of our operations and pay off all the debts for PeerBerry. Actually, in Russia, in banks, they have oversupply of liquidity, so they're actually fighting for us to provide us funding to change PeerBerry debt from banks. And actually now we are in the position to choose the bank to work with, and we are not sure if we need or not, because in rubles we can get a loan like 17-18% in rubles, and in PeerBerry so far we are getting cheaper funding but in euros. But again, when we are analyzing 5-year trend of ruble forex, it goes down by 5% annual. So again, it means that PeerBerry funding is even cheaper for us when banks provide financing. So we have 3 banks offer on the table. We can choose from 3 of them. And actually we can, to pay off all the debts of PeerBerry within months maximum, but we are now investigating if we need it or not. So we are quite a famous player here on the Russian market and in very strong position here. We are among 5 top players here, and our position are growing every month by 10%. Nobody has such a speed as Aventus has in Russia, so investors can be very safe here. Even in case of switching off SWIFT, we are able to pay all of our debts from other countries. This could be like an answer.
When you talked about debt collection, I was following the situation in Kazakhstan in the beginning of the year, where basically the banking system kind of shut down for a few days because of the, let's say, domestic political issues. And the debt collection kind of stopped, right? If I'm not mistaken. Do you think that something like this could happen in Ukraine as well, let's say in the worst case scenario?
I'm sure not. Because we have already lived in such a situation in 2020. Our managers in long-term business in banking from 2010 and even earlier, and they had the situation with Russian war in 2014. So they have such experience, and I know that exactly speaking about the Ukraine, they used to live in such situation in comparison with Europeans. So I understand Europeans it's quite difficult to understand, but this is a little bit different reality from European. And I am European by myself. I am from Lithuania, so from the middle of Europe, but I am used to have business in this region. So I understand feeling of Europeans, but I also understand that there is a difference when you read news in Europe and you go to Ukraine. There is a difference, by the way. So speaking about debt collection, yes, you're absolutely right. In Kazakhstan, we had a trouble first 10 days of this year. Finally, we got a quite significant loss for January, but in February, we got almost all the money back, and February is record profitable month for Kazakhstan. But of course, January was very complicated. But strength of Aventus is that we are working in 14 different markets, and Ukraine and Russia are big markets for us, but not everything. We are quite a big player in Poland, which is a very stable market. Our biggest loan portfolio is in Poland, by the way, which has not influenced by this situation, political situation. And again, this operation in Russia, Ukraine can't be just stopped. Maybe they could be slowed down. But what does it mean? It means that maybe this month we'll collect less money, but we'll collect money in a month. So I don't see the risk that our company will not collect money because people get the loans. And I can say that our scoring is really, really brilliant, working with the best numbers on the markets. And we already tested, as I told you, during COVID crisis. And 2020 was one of the best years. As you remember, for Aventus, we learned this lesson and look forward to work in a positive way this year as well.
Another question that a lot of investors are obviously talking about is the decrease of interest rates across a lot of platforms, including PeerBerry as well. Now, with the connection of the political tensions in Russia, Ukraine, and the domestic issues in Kazakhstan, some of the investors might think that the risk and return ratio might be slightly off, or they would like to get a higher interest rates as they perceive the risk higher in those countries. Why do you think that the interest rates have dropped on PeerBerry?
You know, as I understand, the principle of PeerBerry is supply and demand principle. Current situation that PeerBerry, without advertising and at all, has a much higher supply of funding than we need for our activities. You know, we don't take money just for something, you know. And the main principle of Aventus activity, that we invest PeerBerry money, investors' money, only in operations we believe in. So usually we start startups with own money. When we see a record good numbers of our activities, only then we recommend our investors to join us. So the situation is that we don't go to startups or ideas where we don't believe in, you know, in profitability. For instance, there are products like buy now, pay later, which are not profitable, for instance. These companies quite often are built on principle just to start and sell for other investors. So in Aventus, we don't know how to build such a business. We are oriented only on profitability. So demand for funding in Aventus is limited. Again, all the money we earn, all the profit, and last year it was 37 million euros, we invest in Aventus again. So it means that demand from PeerBerry for financing of new project is limited. This is like a principle of demand supply. So if there is no demand for money, then we can't pay interest, because, you know, interest rate influence on the price of loans for our customers. And we are definitely interested to provide our loans on best rates for our customers. Otherwise, we'll be not interested for them. So when we pay more money for investors, we just increase price of loans for our customers, and this is not good for them, you know. So we try to squeeze all the expenses in our system just to be very efficient. Efficiency is one of the key issues of Aventus as well.
Now, in the current economic environment where the inflation is raising in the last couple of months, did that somehow affect the pricing of your loans?
No, actually, in all the markets we work, we see quite high level of competition. So we need actually to decrease the pricing of our products for our customers in every market. And this again makes quite complicated to pay more for our investment. I'm very realistic here, because we just can't. First of all, you know, there is no point of increasing interest rate at this moment. Maybe situation will be changed. Difficult to say, yeah. But so far we don't have such a big demand for funding, and I don't know. Maybe situation will be changed. For instance, we are starting some interesting products like installments in some markets, and they will require more capital. If it will happen, maybe we'll need to increase the price of funding, and maybe we'll offer a little bit more interest rate for investors, but it will be in the future. I can't say it now because it's only in our plans. So far, we are oriented on current products. We are happy with them. Everything is okay. But of course, we will increase the amount of different products, especially of installment loans, which could be interesting in such markets for our customers. Then maybe price of funding could be a little bit higher than it is now, but not so much, I would say. Again, we have offers from banks. We can issue bonds in Ukraine for quite significant amount of money. We didn't use this way of funding. And if we see that this money will be cheaper from PeerBerry, of course, we'll use them. So it also means that there is no point of paying more money.
Yeah, of course. It puts you in a very comfortable situation, right?
Very sad maybe to hear, but this is true.
Well, of course, a lot of investors on PeerBerry are kind of chasing the highest returns where possible, and they are also aware that if you expand into some of the new markets, you might perhaps offer a higher interest rate. Do you plan any new markets for this year? I think Kenya and India is on the table, so maybe you can share some insights of how you plan to expand those operations there.
Yeah, we are already working in India. In Kenya, we are already for a year there. In India, a little bit less. The market looks quite prospective. We are thinking to launch Nigeria this year as well, but we need to go to zero to break even in Kenya, first of all, in the first our African market. Later on, we'll take a solution about Nigeria. Nigeria, we have already a company, a director, but we are not ready to start operations because we would like to wait until we get first profit in Kenya, first African market. We will launch Czech Republic this year. Relaunch, I will say, because we have been working there until COVID situation, then we stopped. Maybe now we'll restart again. Nigeria is like in pipeline. We also just launched the second company in Vietnam because the first one shows really good, impressive results, by the way, already. But the path to this profit was like 3 years, so not easy. I mean, if somebody thinks that this is very easy business, it's not. I can say our profitability is like less than 5% from turnover. Show me the business where you earn such money. I mean, 5% is not too much. It shows that business is not easy. We need to always to look for new markets because we can't stop. We have headquarters, we have experience we can use in other markets, but there are not so many markets on the table where we can work. Like our philosophy of starting new operations is just to find a market where other players are already successful. We don't go to the market where there is nobody. We don't go to empty market at all. We don't risk our money. We don't risk investors' money. We go only there where we see really good results of our competitors, and only then we go. So we are not very original, I would say. Again, maybe this is sad, but we are responsible for our own money and we are responsible for money of other people. That's why we are so careful and cautious. Yeah.
How are those emerging markets different, let's say, from the ones that you are already working in? Like, I can imagine that every market has its own specifications, but especially maybe in Southeast Asia and the African markets, the kind of quality of the information that you get from borrowers might be different as, let's say, in Europe. The credit information might be of different quality. How is it? Can you give me some insights from your point of view?
All the markets are very different, I can say. There are no similar markets at all. But the key issue on every market is the right person, like a CEO. Currently in Aventus, we have already a system of management from headquarters. We have regional managers. Again, we have a risk department which divided between regions. So this also makes sense in our business. But the key point is to find the right person locally. Always in such markets, we send somebody from our region, for sure, because we prefer to have two managers. In such countries, then the situation becomes more stable. But all of these markets are extremely complicated, I can say, not because of distance, because of management, but always legislation is different. There is no similar legislation everywhere. Sources of information are different. And our practice shows that the way to profitability usually takes like 2-3 years, and again, it shows how complicated this business is, because, in ordinary business, you can like achieve profitability in a year. In these new markets, even with our very impressive expertise, we get profit like the best case scenario, 2 years, realistically 3 years, I can say. This is the reality of our business, but we need to go to new markets, to new countries, because I think when we have such expertise like we have now, in Aventus, we have already more than 2,000 people working only in online operations, and headquarters also quite impressive, really impressive expertise. So we can afford to use it in different markets. Then, again, we are more stable for us, stable for investors, because if something happens, for instance, like in Kazakhstan, it was a pain for us, but it was not critical pain because we got money from other markets. In case of, for instance, situation Russia, Ukraine, again, we had other markets. So it's much better situation, much more stable situation for investors in comparison with company, which is very strong in one market. So this was the principle which was in the basis of our development from first days.
It's obviously also good in terms of diversification for the Aventus Group, right? If you tap into different markets at some point, all the markets will be self-sufficient, hopefully, and that also is lowering the general risk for the company as well, right? Since if there is going to be like some kind of political or regulatory risk that materializes, it should not be a critical issue for you.
Exactly. And, one more internal question is that we can use expertise from one country to another. For instance, in Ukraine, we are now working with installment loans for some time, and we see all the results of this product. So we can just export this experience to other countries because we have already records how this product looks like, what would be the profitability of such a product, what are the risks, and so on. And of course, we use it because such experience costs a lot. This is like the main idea of such a business. And it's impossible to achieve if you are working only in one country. You are too risky, for everybody, especially in such markets, in such situation, with such problem.
Yeah, of course, economies of scale, that makes a huge difference in terms of costs for lending businesses as well. All right, so some investors also asked whether you think that you have reached kind of the potential in some of the markets where you see there is no more growth opportunity. Is there a market which would, where you see that, we kind of reached the limit there, or not yet?
Good question. Thank you. Actually, in the Ukraine, by the way, we are very close to the limit because in terms of non-banking financing, we are number one in this market. And for us, it's very complicated to grow now at this moment. But we'll start installment products and it will open new opportunities for us. But this is new product for us, not so profitable, so we don't hurry with it. But speaking about short-term lending, we are very close to the limits there. For instance, in Russia, we see no limits at all because we have several companies here, and the first player here is much bigger than us, so we can grow several years for sure. Again, installment product can be started in Kazakhstan. There are lots of potential, another market as well. Very limited possibilities to grow in Poland as well, as I see, because it costs a lot to attract new customers. Market is very mature there already. So I would say it also shows that, but it's very profitable and we have a positive cash flow for many years there. So we can use this money to open new markets, new opportunities, and develop our business using the situation where now the markets are matured and there are no limits for growth there.
When it comes to new markets, do you plan to issue some loans or list some loans on PeerBerry as well with a higher interest rate in the coming months?
In the coming months, well, probably not, but the second part of this year, most likely yes. But as I told before, putting loans on PeerBerry, we test the company, we test the market. When we see positive results, only then we go to PeerBerry because we need to protect our investors from possible risks here. But maybe it could be so. Potentially it could be so, but we'll see.
So that's been the first part of the interview. I hope there were some valuable takeaways for you. The military conflict in Ukraine has significantly increased the risk of P2P lending in the entire Eastern Europe, which is something to take into consideration when optimizing your investment portfolio. I will share more of my thoughts and my personal investment decision in the P2P lending segment in the next portfolio update. Thanks for watching and be safe.